Welcome to 843 TV. I am your host, Wayne Morris with WHHI-TV.
And I'm your host, Carrie Smoot with the Village Spa.
And today we are coming to you from the Hilton Head Studios for WHHI-TV, and we got a great show lined up.
We do. Our first guest is Miss Robin Townsend. She is the chair of Daufuskie Tourism, so she's here talking about a hot topic about the public ferry and kind of what they have going on with that. And
yeah,
so that's
really
very
good,
interesting.
Really good information for those that have questions about getting over to Daufuskie.
And I think everybody has a question about
No question.
Daufuskie. And then our second guest is Miss Charlie Clark. She is the Vice President of the Hilton Head Island Bluffton Chamber of Commerce, and she's here to talk about one of the many big things that they have going on throughout the year, which is their Chamber Expo, which sounds really exciting. Yeah. So make sure that you stay tuned for that.
Yeah, and then lastly we have the new Hilton Head News anchor, Bob Stevens, and he's going to tell us about his background and some news stories he sees coming up for our island here in the next year.
He's a pretty interesting guy too.
Very diverse background and very qualified to be the new anchor.
Yes, he is. So make sure that you come back and join us for more 843 TV.
Where communities come to speak.
843 TV, where the town of Hilton Head Island comes to speak.
843 TV, where Daufuskie Island comes to speak.
843 TV, where the Hilton Head Island Bluffton Chamber comes to speak.
.843 TV,
where communities come to speak.
Welcome to 843 TV. Today we are here with Miss Robin Townsend. How are you?
I'm fine, Carrie. Thank you for having me back.
And you are the quote-unquote spokesperson for Daufuskie Island. It seems like that's not your normal title,
no, that's
but
not
you are the
title.
chair of Daufuskie Tourism.
Yes, I am.
But here at WHHI, you're kind of the know-all go-to Daufuskie. I'll give you that. So the most common question you get is, how do you get there?
That is a very common question, and it's much easier to get there than people know it is to get there. We have water taxis that operate to and from Daufuskie Island, many places that they come from, Savannah, Hilton Head, Bluffton, even up in Beaufort. So if you want to take a water taxi, getting to Daufuskie is very easy, and it's not that hard to find. Check with the Chamber of Commerce, check with me with Daufuskie Tourism. We also have marinas over on Daufuskie Island, so if you have a private boat, bring your own boat, come over to the marina, to the public dock, do that. Hague Point maintains their own private ferry system for their members and guests, but the one that's the most common is Daufuskie does have a public ferry, so a lot of us use the public ferry getting to and from Daufuskie Island.
Now, you don't actually pilot the public ferry.
I can see you doubt you'd want to ride if I did this, wouldn't you?
You do everything else for them. How is the public ferry financed? How do we pay for it?
I have noticed in reading editorials throughout the Low Country that tends to be an interesting topic. Our neighbors tend to think that they are paying for Daufuskie's ferry and they don't want to invest anymore in Daufuskie's public ferry. But property taxes alone, we bring close to $5 million off Daufuskie just in property taxes alone. So I'd like all of you to know we're paying for our own public ferry out of our own tax revenue over there, and then that leaves money to share around in the rest of the county, because with what's going into the ferry system on Daufuskie right now, it's just shy of $500,000, so there's enough money to go around. So that's how it's funded, is by Daufuskie property taxes and other things, but also the state of South Carolina DOT, because our ferry is an extension of the roadway, they contribute a modest amount each year to the operation of the public ferry. But we're paying for the public ferry here on Daufuskie.
Well, can't really argue with that amount.
A whole lot cheaper than a bridge.
It's, well, in some ways it is, and two, there's the romance of traveling on the waterway, and it saves land for things that I think are more valuable than always having a roadway on it.
Well, Robin, who's riding the ferry? Is this just for residents? It's for visitors? It's for workers? Who's riding the ferry? Who's on it?
Since it is known as a public ferry, the public get to ride the ferry, but Beaufort County's municipal code does state in it who gets to ride the ferry, and it starts with Daufuskie residents because it is our roadway.
Right.
It also, of course, services students, but it does state within that if you're a member of the qualified general public. Now, I'm not sure how you qualify to be a member of the general public, but in essence, anyone can ride the public ferry to and from Daufuskie Island.
And where does the public ferry leave from?
The mainland or from Hilton Head, yeah.
Yeah, right now, for years, and Charlie would have the history of this better than I for how long she's been at the Chamber, to my knowledge, the embarkation point has been Hilton Head since the time when the bridge was built here and on the island. Prior to that, the public ferry system was truly a transit system that was the roadway. It went from Savannah and stopped at Daufuskie and went on to Bluffton and here to Hilton Head. But when the bridge came on the island, it's pretty well our embarkation point has been between Daufuskie Island and Hilton Head.
So is it the one out of Seapoints?
At this point in time, the contract changes each year, so there's different providers, and that's something that the public would want to know is there are people that are out there that are operating boats that have an opportunity to bid on the contract to operate the ferry, but at this point in time, it's coming out of Broad Creek Marina, but that could change with the next contract year.
Okay, so when you come out of Broad Creek, though, there still is a fare as well.
There is a fare when you come out of it. In the past, there have been times that the ferry that there wasn't an actual charge or a fare, a toll, different terms are used to ride the ferry. At this point in time, those of us that ride the ferry, it's a little bit of a sliding scale depending on if you are the general public or if you're a student or senior citizen or a renter or whatever. So there's a little bit of a different fare scale that we pay, but we do pay to ride on that ferry at this point in time. And I know some places that operate their public ferry system, you may be charged a toll or you may not be charged a toll. I know my favorite is North Carolina because native to North Carolina. Not really, but I said that. But they don't charge for the areas that people are dependent on their ferry as the roadway they can't drive. They don't charge the residents of the area to ride on the ferry because it's an extension of the road, just as 278 is what you use to get to and from. Water. It is the road. So our ferry, thank you, Charlie, our road over water.
So you've kind of touched on this a little bit, but just to recap for us and tell us how the public ferry impacts the Low Country and the surrounding areas.
We do make, as I've been here and I'm learning more and more, we really do make much more of an impact than I think the general public understands that we do. The Chamber of Commerce, our Hilton Head Chamber and the Bluffton Chamber, surrounding chambers, are very well aware. Charlie was just talking about having 2009 before we started about bringing the bachelor program over to Daufuskie. Well, if we did not have Daufuskie there and a way to get to and from Daufuskie, the things that are unique on Daufuskie would never be known, experienced throughout the Low Country. We wouldn't have people, we wouldn't have the ability to live there, the school there. So just as 278 or 170 or I-95, any roadway that comes to a community, we're dependent on our roadways to get to and from economic development, the school systems, everything that goes around it, having home. So it brings an impact to the community because we have jobs, we have homes, and just as I said, $5 million in property tax that's coming into Beaufort County.
Well, and all money aside, I mean, you can see the picture behind us of the historic restoration. There are some significant historical sites on Daufuskie. I mean, basically the entire island, which we don't even have enough time to get into all of that right now. But
well, if you were to look
huge.
at a map of the roadway of the water systems, and you would see where the ferry has historically traveled from one point to the other, and when it did make a different kind of economic impact. So yeah, our public ferry system, and I do stress it as being public, does make a tremendous impact here in the Low Country.
So can you very quickly tell us how can we connect the stakeholders and interested parties to benefit the Low Country and the kind of
we tend to have, because there are different contracts that are out there, it tends to be that each one's doing their own little thing. It would be better benefit, like with many places, if the stakeholders would work together. So if the school contract were combined with the portion that's the public contract and the fire department contract and the county contract were all to be combined, we could get better return on the tax dollar, in addition to expanding the hours that the ferry operates, which would have an economic impact. And in March of 2013, a House resolution was drafted and is being worked on moving forward. It's moving a little bit slow, but just stating that the state and federal highway department would oversee the Daufuskie ferry system. So obviously it's important when we have somebody look at it thinking we need to get the ferry system back to what it historically was when it was truly a roadway for the Low Country.
That's great.
It's a lot of information. So if you have any more questions or need to inquire anymore, go to DaufuskeTourism.com.
Good.
All right. And thank you for being with us, Ms. Robin.
Thank you.
And make sure that you come right back for more 843 TV.